Hello, I'm Hugh Coakley from the Guildford Dragon News. The Dragon are conducting a series of interviews with the leaders or nominated representatives of the various parties at Guildford Borough Council in the lead up to the elections, the local elections on May the 4th. We have the great pleasure today to have Joss Bigmore, leader of R4GV and deputy council leader, with us today. Joss has kindly agreed to be interviewed on behalf of the residents for Guildford and Villages Party, the R4GV Party. Welcome, Joss, and thanks for talking to the Guildford Dragon News.
No problem, Hugh. I'm glad I've got the A team of you today rather than Martin.
I'm not sure about the A team, but anyway, the local plan. I'll launch into our questions, Joss.
Sure.
The local plan was a big issue at the last election, and arguably gave R4GV a boost in support amongst the voters. What's your party's policy on the local plan now? When will it be reviewed, and what changes will you be seeking?
Oh, I mean, it was a big issue then, and it's a big issue now. I mean, it is a straitjacket that is very difficult to escape from. So yes, the local plan is already being reviewed. Now, I will be very clear: the review in itself is irrelevant. All parties will come here and say we're reviewing the local plan. What is clear, R4GV and GGG will review the local plan, declare it out of date, and update the local plan, which is what needs to happen. So the update is the only thing that will change the local plan. Just saying, oh, we're going to review it, because the review could just say, it's working fine. It is delivering the right numbers of houses. There is nothing to see here. We're just going to carry on regardless. And I'm sure that is what some of the other parties will end up doing if we're not elected. So to be very clear, R4GV, and I'm sure GGG, will pledge to update the local plan. We need to review the evidence base for the Countryside and Greenbelt study, which was the study that kind of ripped the villages out of the Greenbelt. And we need to make sure, and we need to ensure we can do what we can to reinstate Greenbelt boundaries. I mean, we have this farcical situation where the local plan took Chilworth out of the Greenbelt, and now the AONB review, the Area of Outstanding Natural Beauty, which is a higher grade of protection, is proposing to put Chilworth back in. I mean, it's an absolute farce. So we need to update the local plan, the precise policies, the Countryside and Greenbelt study, the employment, retail and leisure study, and the traffic study, which will update the infrastructure needs. They're the three big areas we need to review.
Okay, Joss.
And then there's the whole argument about the population numbers that we need to tackle.
Okay, Joss, so update sounds like a very definite action. Timescale.
Well, it has to be done by May next year. But as soon as the government decides what it wants to do about the planning policy changes with the MPPF and the planning policy guidance, it might be sooner. But until, I mean, at the moment, you know, there's so many politics going on with planning numbers are advisory now, or they may not be. But the government position is farcical. They're still saying they want 300,000 homes a year, but now they're saying, actually, we're not going to give you any housing targets. So what's happened? Every borough in this area that doesn't have an adopted local plan has said, we're not doing one. And there's going to be no housing delivery. So either the government needs to drop the 300,000 target, or they're not being particularly truthful about whether they're actually going to make the housing targets advisory or not. They're just inconsistent. But it's election time, and inconsistency is the way forward, isn't it?
Okay, Joss, very brief answer to this. Are you satisfied with the progress on the local plan review so far?
Yes. And I am at odds with some in my group. As you remember, the whole debate in council about whether to early review or not. Two members of R4GV executive voted to early review, and myself and John Rigg said it was too risky. So R4GV, it shows we are of independent thought. And I think it's very dependent where you live, how you perceive the risks. So if you're in the Horsleys, there is no risk to reviewing the local plan early, because you know, it is planning Armageddon over there. You know, if you're in an area that is at risk of further development or another allocation, you perceive the risk very differently. It was my personal view that the risks for the borough of a whole of an early review were greater, you know, than not. And as I said, we were very split in R4GV, as was you know, as evidenced in the vote.
Okay, so rattling on, so there's so much to cover. So will your party continue the work on shaping Guildford's future? And
Absolutely.
And the
Absolutely.
associated master plan.
Absolutely, absolutely. I mean, the situation at the moment, you know, flood alleviation strategy ignored for 30 odd years. You know, we've finally got it planning with partnership with Surrey County Council to, you know, to sort out flooding, irrespective of whether that releases land allocations. We need to do that for the residents and the businesses of the town centre. It is scandalous that we've, you know, we've been this period of climate change that we still have flooding issues in the town. It will happen soon. You know, the master plan will deliver that. We need to manage the growth properly. There are no policies to protect the town centre. The situation at the moment, the inconsistency in decision making. So, you know, North Street, we probably talk about later. You know, the Lib Dem ward members of Friary and St Nicholas consented a 3-story extension on 1 Onslow Street up to 9 stories, you know, without even sending it to a planning committee. You know, having said North Street was far too high. They are pushing 9 stories on Guildford Park Road, which is on a higher piece of land, and it's only 30 centimetres lower than the 13 stories on North Street. And apparently that's fine. So we need some very prescriptive zonal height policies around the town, and that's what the master plan will deliver, and densities. We need to tightly define the river corridor to ensure that there is wide open spaces so we can all enjoy the river, and that's what the master plan will deliver. That's what we owe to the town centre residents that have been ignored by all of the planning policy.
Tell me if I'm right, but do I recall you saying, or in an article in the Dragon, that you didn't think height policies were actually appropriate, and it had to be, you know, sort of on a case-by-case basis?
But the inconsistency of certain members of the planning committee have shown that we need them, because for me, height in itself is not harmful. The harm comes from views, it comes from harm to heritage assets, and the planning committee should be consistent about how it applies those. It has shown itself not to be, so therefore we need to be more prescriptive in the policies.
Okay.
That's my trust in human nature, and it's proved my undoing.
We ask questions and we expect a response. Thank you very much for that response. The master plan in Guildford strikes me as being a hugely significant document, but some have said that the consultation for this document has not been good, considering the huge impact it could have on the town. What's your thoughts on that?
I think it's the most extensive consultation the council has ever done. You know, and that's a factual. Is it enough? Have we reached everybody? No, we have not. You know, do we always need to strive to do better consultation? Yes, we do. But we've spent a lot of money consulting on that master plan. Now, it is very difficult to get people to engage unless they have very strong opinions. And I think that's something we need to find, you know, a way of better engaging, whether it's through kind of social media, whether we you know, I don't really know, but we need to find a way, because you're correct that you know, we need to, all demographics, businesses, you know, community groups, everyone needs to be involved. But I can guarantee that was the most extensive consultation on shaping Guildford's future that's ever been done by Guildford Borough Council.
What, on any subject?
Yeah.
Okay, interesting. So,
in terms of the, you know, you know, in terms of the money we've put in it, the professionalism of the companies doing it, and the way it shaped the development. Similar, I mean, the North Street consultation was done by a private developer. The council had nothing to do with it because it's their application. You know, that was a very good consultation, in my opinion, and it reduced the quantum of housing on that site from 750 homes that we inherited from the Conservatives to 470. So the consultation process does work. It's just we need to make sure that we reach all corners of the borough.
I think it's fair to say that consultation in the last, I don't know, certainly in the last term has changed. You know, it used to be, well, in my opinion, it has changed.
What, for the better or for the worse?
Well, I think it's more frequent. You know, the on Debenhams.
Good. I mean, that was something we really wanted to do as R4GV. Is to try and engage the council better. And you've seen with things like,
well, it's London not just I think I wouldn't want to say it's R4GV. Lib Dems have been in power as well, but it has been on Debenhams, for instance. You have seen the progress of thinking on Debenhams. Yeah. And on, but I mean, look at the London Road Cycle Scheme. You know, without R4GV, that would be being delivered, and that would be a one-way road closure affecting all those residents and all those schools for 5 months. You know, that is R4GV have caused that to be delayed.
not stopped, delayed, because we all want a cycle scheme, but we need one that's executed with as little disruption as possible to the residents and the schools. It was going to be being delivered when kids were doing GCSEs and A levels, struggling in traffic to get to school.
Okay.
I mean, that's R4GV saying talk to the residents.
Okay.
Organize a public meeting. 450 people turned up.
Jumping on to the next issue. We've had a very high-profile campaign video from a chap called Robin Horsley in his video, "The Battle for Guildford." What's your party's views of that recent campaign video?
I don't really know. I mean, this is the way politics is. That you've got an individual, with historic links to the Conservative Party, releasing an attack video on independent groups that's, inaccurate, one-sided. He can pay to boost it through social media, which political parties can't do. So it reaches a load of people. And because of, the conduct of national politicians all over the world, that your ordinary person wants to believe the man in his bedroom that's good at producing videos versus the factual truth from politicians, because no one wants to believe politicians. They'd rather believe a man in his bedroom that's good at making home videos. I mean, it's really, and it's straight out of the Brexit Cambridge Analytica playbook, is to just put out these very emotive, full of misrepresentation. I mean, I'm a banker, so I can't possibly be honest. I mean, it's a joke. I mean, I haven't worked for a bank for 7 years, and I'm chairing a hospital, and apparently I'm untrustworthy. I find it laughable. But thankfully, people are seeing through it. I mean, every comment in the Dragon is saying, who is this man? And sorry, I need to check myself there. So, we're just working hard to go out with the truth. And the truth is that North Street, policy A5 in the Conservative adopted local plan on the North Street site had 41,000 square meters of retail and 400 homes. Now, the retail, we obviously don't need anywhere near that quantum. When that capacity of retail was converted to housing, it was 750 homes. So the Conservatives being up in arms about 473, their allocation in their adopted plan would have been damn near double the massing. And it's like the hypocrisy and the politics. It's just embarrassing. It really is embarrassing. But I cannot boost a Facebook post like Robin Horsley can to get to 40,000 people. Okay. In the best will in the world, Hugh, 40,000 people aren't going to be listening to me and you now. No.
R4GV people I've spoken to seem to be quite badly bruised by the Robin Horsley video, and they're saying it's a massive issue on the doorstep.
I think that's a huge exaggeration. I mean, everyone I speak to, I spoke to a guy in Murray yesterday, said, I don't know about that. You want to concrete over the high street? And I'm like, do you mind having a conversation about it? And he said, no. I said, look, no one in my group, myself included, does not think the height is harmful. However, you and me and Martin disagree on this, and I'm sure me and you will as well, Hugh. But you cannot ignore there are benefits to that scheme, and everyone's perception of the benefits and the harms is different. I happen to think the benefits of that scheme, the housing, the medical centre, the new bus station, pedestrianisation.
It's not so much. It's not so much that. I imagine if you talk to individual people, you may have a chance of convincing them.
Yeah.
But the video is out there. It's been looked at by a large number of people, and I've been told by R4GV people that it is hitting you on the doorstep. Now,
well, I think the impact is getting less and less as people research who this gentleman is. The proud European who's an arch Brexiteer. I mean, it's anyway, whatever. It is what it is. We will work hard on the doorstep. We'll go out with our positive message, and and people want the truth. They don't want opinion. They want fact.
Yeah. Okay. So next topic, whipping on to the next topic. GBC's finances are very tight at the present.
Yeah.
Not helped by COVID. What can GBC do to increase revenue given the general state of the finances?
Yeah, I think GBC has a number of very, very valuable assets, community assets, and we need to find a way to monetize them better, because at the moment they're kind of a drain. You know, if you think about the subsidy per visit we pay to the museum, or how much the Guildhall costs, or the castle, you know, we need to make better use of these crown jewels of Guildford. And I think a prime example is the Guildford Pavilion at the cricket ground, which is council owned, and we've put a proper management company in there now. They're opening the roof terrace shortly. It's going to be a sunshine bar looking out over Guildford in the summer, and that's what we need to do. We need to make better use of these assets. You know, private dining in the Guildhall. You know, all things like this. You know, one-up executive functions in the museum surrounded by the exhibits. We can't just have these buildings sat redundant. You know, and that's a real shame. I mean, the Guildhall is stunning, and it's always closed. I mean, it's absurd. You know, now we're kind of through COVID, we can be a lot more welcoming again. I think we need to start finding a way to actually generate some revenue out of these assets that cost the taxpayer quite a lot of money.
Okay, something like Guildford Museum, often people say it is like you're saying, they're a wasted asset, but to get best out of that would need finance.
Well, I don't see why. Why can't we just open it in the evening and have corporate functions there? Why does that require finance?
Would corporate functions be valuable in a relatively small museum? What I'm thinking
as I said, we haven't investigated it, but you know, and I'm not saying it's the Natural History Museum, but they make a fortune out of corporate functions, you know, and it's a different market in Guildford. But you know, the Guildhall, we you know, we just need to have a much more kind of proactive, how can we monetize these things? It doesn't mean sell them. It means how can we generate revenue from these? Because we will never ever sell the Guildhall or any of the crown jewels of Guildford. You know, so it's how can we actually get some use out of these buildings so they can wash their face, or even generate a return for the taxpayer.
Okay. Again, sorry to be jumping forward, but
no, you're fine.
But I'm going to do that.
So I'm getting quite passionate, so I'm speaking quickly to try and help you out.
No, thank you very much. No, some say GBC is not doing enough to prioritise measures to address climate change. What's your thoughts? Do you agree?
Completely agree. Completely agree. 4 years to come up with a climate change action plan, disgrace. You know, 53 million to get to net zero by 2030 is never going to happen. You know, and I think what we need to do as a council is actually harness the power of the community, because real change happens when lots of people do little things. So if we can just, everyone in the borough, you know, uses their lights for 10% less each day, or has a slightly shorter shower, or make sure that they boil a kettle and use all the water in it. If we can just start that kind of targeted community campaign to change everyone's behaviour, that is going to make a hell of a lot more difference to climate change than Guildford Borough Council paying double for a prototype electric dust cart that may or may not work for a year because it's, you know, they're brand new and it's untested technology. So I think we need to work with groups like Zero Carbon to say, look, how are we going to get the 160,000 residents in this borough to all reduce their carbon use by 10% over the next 4 years, or 20%, or whatever it is. And the council needs to really start that kind of campaign and lead that campaign to just get everyone to make some little changes that will make a huge difference. You know, ride your bike into Guildford rather than drive once a week, you know, little things like that. And I think we really, so for me, that's what we've missed. And it's been, you know, to be fair, COVID's been there for 2 years. It's been very difficult to harness that sense of community because everyone's been isolated. So I think that's a real focus of mine, if I'm lucky enough to be in this position on May the 5th, to say, right, climate change, yes, we will do our best as a council to lead, but it may not be cost effective for us to get the last, you know, bit of carbon out of our use. That money may be better spent somewhere else in the borough to have a bigger impact on the borough's carbon use. So I think we really need to engage with the community, and that's your consultation, communication bit that we really need to work and reach everybody.
So you're saying that the previous push was to make the council itself carbon neutral. You're saying you're going to widen that out to the community?
Yeah, because it'll make more of a difference. I mean, Guildford Borough Council, the carbon emissions of the Borough Council are tiny compared to the emissions of the borough. So it's far more important. If we set our target to say, right, the council uses X tons of carbon, or you know, a year, we want to reduce the borough's emissions by more than that by 2030. For me, that's the important thing. Whether the borough council does it or the borough as a whole does it, you know, it's at the end of the day, it's less carbon, which is what we're all after. And I think it is the wrong decision for the council to concentrate on its own if you can actually reduce more by investing the money in something else. I mean, for me, that's just basic maths. And the most important thing, reduce carbon emissions.
You haven't mentioned businesses. You talked about the individuals shutting lights off and whatnot.
Yeah.
How about businesses?
I think businesses are ahead of the council. I think the population is ahead of the council, and I think we need to catch up. I mean, I think there is a great will in the community to tackle this together, and we just need to have a meeting of like minds to say how can we actually energize this to everybody making a difference.
Okay, last question, or last theme of the question.
Yeah.
Over the last 3 or 4 years, there's been complaints about getting through to the council on the telephone.
Yeah.
And there's been huge complaints about planning applications being processed so slowly. I mean, how will R4GV improve customer services at GBC, especially in the areas of planning and responding to customer inquiries?
Yeah. So planning. I actually have a lot of sympathy for Tom Hunt, the lead member for development management. He's by far the most able Lib Dem exec councillor, and I actually feel, and it's quite difficult because I'm not criticising an individual officer, but I would say that the information we were getting out of planning about the extent of the issues was poor. So by the time we found out, it was too late. And we had a backlog of we had a backlog of over 1,000 applications. Now that was caused because of a massive increase in applications, plus difficulties in staff retention and hiring. So whatever, the position was there, and by the time we found out the extent of it, it's kind of too late.
I mean, why didn't you? What was the bar to you finding out?
The MI was poor.
MI, what's the MI?
Management information. So the data coming out, it was poor, and I'm very reticent to criticize any individuals. And it was again during COVID, all those excuses. But as soon as we found out the extent of the problems, for 2 years running, we invested an extra £500,000 into planning for agency staff, for outsource, because we couldn't hire, outsourcing applications. We employed an extremely good, effective turnaround director, Gillian, who's done a fantastic job. And for the last 6 months, minor applications inside the statutory deadline have been over 70%, which is the ministry's guideline. So we are back on track. Now, it is still fragile because there is still staff turnover. There's still extremely high demand for decent planners. But we have made a huge difference in the last 6 months, and people will start to see that. So yes, I apologise for the performance of the council, but I'd like to think that as councillors and exec members, as soon as we were aware of the extent of the problems, we acted, and we put in a lot of money, to try and rectify the issues, and we're now starting to see that come through, which obviously the next administration will take full credit for, and that's fine.
Okay, so what's hard to understand is how Guildford was at the bottom of the pile. And all around the country, people were experiencing increases in planning applications and difficulties in retaining staff.
Well, so
why Guildford?
The particular circumstance of Guildford, and it was not across the country, it was the southeast predominantly that had the huge surge. But you've got to remember that when we took over in 2019, in flight was this future Guildford transformation project. The Conservatives left this legacy of I think it was somewhere around a 50 million medium-term financial plan deficit, and a transformation program called Future Guildford to strip out 6 million in cost every year. Basically, that was getting rid of people and investing in technology. So, we're facing a financial black hole, thank you very much, and have this transformation program basically in flight. So that took out quite a lot of the support around the planning service just at a time when COVID hit and we had a massive surge in applications. It was a perfect storm. So, faced with a decision of, do we continue with the transformation program Future Guildford and risk another 6 million a year in deficit, or do we carry on and try and get through this? So it really was a perfect storm. So the COVID, the applications, the staff shortage, and the transformation program all at once made Guildford a very, very particular circumstance.
Okay. Presumably that affected the way the phones were answered, because people tell you
exactly.
So what are you going to do about it? Because people still say they can't get the phone.
Yeah, and phone up any government agency at the moment, Hugh, you'll have exactly the same issue. Phone up BA, you have exactly the same issue. This is not a Guildford Borough Council only thing. However, it is not good enough. Again, you know, training, investment, fully staffed team, you're starting to see the benefits come through. More and more people are using the online digital channels, but we're still going to have 20 staff. So what used to happen pre-Future Guildford was every department had its own customer service. Now, the new world is we have a much bigger customer service team and everyone is multifunctional. So that is a lot better for career development for the people in the customer service team. However, the transition from the very, you know, people heavy, segregated customer service team to a bank of people, you know, has again caused issues, you know, and it's teething issues. But the more and more people are using the online channels, you know, we're now fully staffed and fully trained in the customer service team, and the call waiting times are getting better, but they're still not good enough.
Okay. And that's it, Josh. Thank you very much. We've covered all the issues we think our readers will like to hear. Thank you very, very much for talking to the Guildford Dragon News.
Hugh, if this is the last time we speak after May the 5th, it's been a pleasure, and I hope you know, I hope the leaders to come are as accommodating to your interviews as I've been.
All right. Thank you very much, Josh. Thank you very much.